on, man. I gotta go. Fucking dog.
Bark, bark.
Bark. Bark, bark. Let's go. Come on, let's go. You want a treat? You want a treat? Come on. Come on. Want a treat? Good boy. All right. I am safe at home.
All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Whenever you are, buddy.
All right. You, do you think you could, find a place and that stays still so there's no background noise?
Yes, sir.
All right.
How about that?
That sounds good. All right. Don't move. Shh, don't. Okay. All right. Hit. Okay.
Hello?
Whoa. I'm joined today by. Whoa. What? Wait. No, but you. I'm joined today by Jorden Mink, a January 6th defendant I spent 2 years with inside the D.C. gulag. Jorden, like the rest of us, was hunted down after January 6th and held in pretty horrendous conditions inside the D.C. jail. He spent really the past 4 years behind bars until being pardoned by President Trump. So, I'd like to give Jorden the opportunity to talk about his story, talk about his case, and talk about his journey, really. So first off, Jorden, my boy, thank you thank you for being with me today, Jorden. The first thing I would like you to really get into is a little bit about who you actually are, a little bit about yourself, your background. Who is Jorden Mink?
Who is Jorden Mink? Sometimes I'm wondering the same thing, man. But, well, first of all, I'm a father. I'm a husband now. I'm a son, a brother, an uncle, a friend, a fellow American. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Lived here my whole life. Was raised by my mother, single mother, me and my older brother. She worked many jobs, crazy hours, just to keep a roof over our head, keep us clothed and fed and all that, which I'm very appreciative. She's the reason that I'm so strong these days, and I have a huge faith and love for this country.
Well, that's why they call you the Pittsburgh Patriot.
Pittsburgh Patriot, baby. Yes, sir. That started in the gulag. Well, everybody had like their cool names and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I got the idea from Lego, man. Shout out to Lego, man. But I'm like, that's a cool ass name. You know what I mean? Like, look at that dude, you know?
Well, on the subject of the gulag, I want to go really through your, the path you took to end up in D.C. Okay. So the first thing I'd like to start with then is, obviously, you got picked up for January 6th, and so really I'd like to get into the build-up to that. If we could, let's get into what your motivation was for going to D.C. Some people went there, obviously, I think most people went there to protest over the election or just to hear President Trump speak. I think a lot of people went there to protest COVID lockdowns, and there are a lot of different reasons people might have gone. Maybe not even just one. But why did you go to DC on January 6th?
Yeah, that's me right there. Just not even just one. It was actually all of them. You know what I mean? First of all, the election, COVID, and then just thinking it was going to be the last time. I mean, still praying and hoping that it wasn't. You know what I mean? We weren't sure how that election was going to turn out. Still, we had a little bit of faith and I guess a little too much in Pence there, but yeah, it was just everything stacked together, man. Everything we were going through, and everything they were putting people through, which was crazy to me because I'm like, they're not physically holding you in your house. They're not physically putting a mask on your face or like keeping you out of stores, this and that. So I was still out and about, you know what I mean? Me and my family. There's a lot of places you couldn't go. You couldn't go to church. You can go to a strip club though, you know what I mean? Makes a lot of sense. I don't know. For an evil regime, you know what I mean?
I do most of my praying at the strip club.
Yeah. Hey, that's where they need it the most. You know, sometimes they need it more than the people in the church. But, yeah, it was just all together, man. And I was just fed up, especially after all the numbers changing, especially in Pennsylvania. We seen it was overnight, you know what I mean? Some people stay up and they watch the TVs and stuff, which I did a little bit, but I found out the next morning and that all these numbers changed and stuff. And I looked at it, I'm like, how is that even possible? I mean, I know we got some type of fraud, especially with dead people voting and stuff like that, which I have somebody in the family that they got a letter thanking their deceased father for their vote. So it goes as far as that, but it was just a historic, because I wasn't able to vote in 16 because I wasn't registered. And then it was too late for me to register or else I would have voted. So this time, you know what I mean? It was a little bit more personal because I got registered and I was excited. My first time voting, I voted. You know what I mean? It was all a big thing. Got my little sticker. You know what I mean? I love it. But then them numbers changed, man, and just everything piled up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going down. You know what I mean? I'm trying to find people to go with. Nobody wants to go because, I mean, everybody got work and stuff like that. I understand. But I'm like, it was a huge deal. So I'm like, I'm still going to go. And Lexi at the time, she was my fiance at the time. We've been together almost 15 years, just got married in October. But she was my fiance at the time. She's like, you shouldn't go, this and that. You know how they are. I'm like, I'm still going. You know what I mean? So I set my alarm. So, because I'm a few hours from DC and I had to drive, so I set my alarm. I actually woke up late. I slept through my alarm, woke up late, hurried up, got ready, got in my truck, went and got gas or whatever. I drove all the way down there, and I had my stuff on me. You know what I mean? I'm decked out in all my Carhartt, and you know what I mean, because they said it's gonna be cold, so I got my sweatshirt, my beanie on. I got my little flagpole, got an American flag on it, Trump flag on it. And I arrived there, and once I started getting into D.C., like walking around, I'm seeing all these Trump supporters. You know, well, hopefully they were Trump supporters. Who knows? You walking past some feds or something, you know. But then I start to hear something, and it's like from the loudspeaker. At first, you couldn't figure out what it was, but the closer you got, it was Trump's voice. And I'm like, just that experience from like walking towards the ellipse and like hearing that, and I'm like, I was mad that I was late, but like it all went away when I started to hear him over the loudspeaker. I'm like, oh my God, like this is it. Like this is my first rally. It's in DC at the ellipse. Like I'm walking up right now. And it just, the crowd just got thicker and thicker as you got closer.
Right.
And then I finally got to the monument, and I was just kind of walking around a little bit, kind of squeezing through the crowd, you know what I mean? Trying to get as close as I could to Trump. And I got pretty damn close. I got down cause I come in a little off the side from, like the top of the ellipse where the monument's at. And I kind of weaseled my way down through the crowd slowly and stuff, and I got almost down to like that street right there that split the ellipse and stuff from the actual White House. But there's people everywhere, man. Like it was just an amazing experience. I'm seeing people in trees, bro. There were people up in the trees. I'm like, what the hell? We in the fucking zoo or what? You know what I mean? But I got pretty much like probably the middle or I don't know, but I did personally hear, since it's always talked about, when he said that we were walking down to the Capitol and we were going to be peaceful
Yeah.
So from that, we'll get to that. But like I said, I was a little late, so I didn't get too much time of the speech. But like it was just an amazing opportunity to be there in person, hear him, be able to see him a little bit because he was still far away.
Yeah.
But it ended, and then before it ended, people were starting to start moving away, like walking down to the Capitol. And what I heard before, like as I was going down and stuff, I'm checking social medias and stuff, and they obviously had them like, oh, there's going to be an attack, like a terroristic attack, and I'm like, I hope not, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking like some crazy stuff. So I'm like, I wasn't planning on going to the Capitol. I'm like, it sounds cool, you know what I mean? But I heard about this, and I'm just here for the speech, really, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to get in those situations, you know? So I'm like, all right. I started following the crowd a little bit. I said, I'll walk down the street a little bit and then I'll stop. I did that a few times. I think I was on Pennsylvania Ave, because as soon as you walk around the building, the one corner, it's Pennsylvania, and it goes straight down. You can see the top of the Capitol.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is sweet. Just a flow of bodies just walking down the street, patriotic. Like you could hear. They're singing the anthem. They're singing different songs. They're cheering. You know what I mean? The flags flying because it's a little windy that day. A lot windy that day. But so I'm going down. Then I stop and I'm like, just checking out the crowd and taking a couple selfies and stuff like that. Some pictures to send to people. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll keep going a little bit. Next thing you know, I'm down at the little statue that I'm pretty sure it's like a water fountain statue right there in front of the Capitol.
Yeah, I think it's Peace Circle, I think. One of those.
Yeah, Peace Circle. Yeah, and then it got that little water fountain, but it was empty, and people were climbing that as well. I'm like, well, that's crazy because there was like not really any. I'm not talking about safety, but like it did not look safe to climb up there. You know what I mean? I'm like, and you ain't got no water below you. You know, everybody's stacking up on there. It looks like people are hanging on to each other just to stay up. But and then as I'm down there, because I was a little behind, so that's when we didn't know at the time, but now that we know, that was when flashbacks and everything started going off. So people started hearing that. I'm like, what the hell was that? The first thing I thought was like a gunshot, but then they kept going off, and I'm like, is this really happening? Like, dude, I heard about it. Like, I heard about something happening, but I didn't really believe it that much. But I'm like, I was just caught up in the situation. Like, do you leave? You know what I mean? Do you run from this, or do you go and see what's going on and like see if you can help? Because at that time, I'm like, bro, shit's blowing up. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know what it is, but there's a huge crowd, and there was so many people that like people weren't moving. And then, like, you could see there's a lot of people that were turning around and running. Dude, they couldn't get out. You know what I mean? They're, like, trying to squeeze through crowds and stuff like that. And then what you're seeing, like, women, children, and older folks, you know what I mean? All through this crowd. And you're, like, not sure what the hell's going on or, like, how to go about the situation.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting through the crowd, which was the toughest situation, dude. Like, because everybody was shoulder to shoulder, like you can almost not even breathe. But I got my way up, trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and I got up to the scaffolding. And at that time, by the time I get up there, everything's already moving. Like people were climbing scaffolding, people were walking up steps and stuff. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, where's the situation at? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get up to the scaffolding, and I get up on, it was the left scaffolding. Like if you're looking at the West Terrace, it was the left one. And I was up there, and I'm like looking around, and then there's everybody. It was like ants. You know what I mean? It was like a crazy picture. There was just people everywhere. And then you could see a little bit of what was going on the steps of the tunnel. You know what I mean? And I'm just watching that for like a good 15, 20 minutes. And they're just like annihilating people. You know what I mean? Like in the footage that they show and stuff, it is a little crazy, but I feel like the beginning was actually a lot worse, other than, you know what I mean, Roseanne losing her life and stuff like that. Like before, like when it was still going, I was watching it from the scaffolding. Like it was horrible. I seen the one guy, the one older guy, he come back, he's like bleeding from his eye. I'm like, what the hell was going on? So I'm seeing everybody coming back, they're asking for water, and everybody's like, their faces are, you know what I mean, snot, tears, blood, whatever you have it, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this is nonsense. So I get down and I like start making my way a little bit towards like that window and the tunnel and stuff. I'm like trying to get like a closer look, you know what I mean?
When you say the window, are you talking about, I know we're talking about the Lower West Terrace tunnel, which is, it's above what they call the West Terrace. So there's this tunnel, and there are windows to both sides of it. So if you were looking at the tunnel, you're talking about the one to the left of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's multiple windows right there. The tunnel's where the president comes out, usually for the inauguration, comes out and then stands at that platform at the end.
Right.
But off to the left. But as I'm up there, like I'm getting gassed. I got sprayed by pepper spray because they got them super soakers, is what we call them.
Yeah.
They were the super soakers it looked like a power washer handle and then a big canister that goes under your arm and under your armpit. Like it looks like a big CO2 thing for paintball guns.
Yeah, it's a cannon basically.
You know what I mean? And these things, like just the pressure alone, without it being pepper spray, was like enough to do some damage. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that was the crazy stuff. Is even with the footage and stuff, with the front lines, they were not spraying the front lines. They were spraying up and over into deep into the crowd. You know what I mean? So ultimately, people that weren't doing anything, you know?
Yeah, pedestrians.
So it's like, so I'm starting to get hit with this stuff. I'm like, then I'm asking for water. I'm like washing my face and stuff like that. But so at that window to the left of the tunnel, there's 4 windows. There's 2 long rectangle windows at the bottom, and then 2 like arched windows at the top. And there was one already broken out at the bottom right, and people were like getting in there. There was like a little meeting room or something. There was like some furniture, a table, some chairs, and a couple like other chairs. And I'm like, what the hell is it? You know what I mean? So I got in there, and as I'm in there, like there's a bunch of people in there. But because of the wind and stuff, there's pepper spray, gas, all of that stuff being blown right into that small window. And there's no other, you know what I mean, type of ventilation other than their ventilation, but it's not meant for, you know what I mean, pepper spray and gas. So these people in here are choking on this gas and stuff. And they're all asking for gas masks, this and that. And I'm like, I couldn't breathe. So I'm standing there. Somebody had a bat, which I need to look more at footage when it gets released, if it gets released, because obviously we're looking for people where we got shit or certain people, and that's probably not going to be found. But somehow I got that bat, and I'm thinking I'll just bust this window out, you know what I mean? Because obviously nobody's leaving, and nobody can breathe. So I started trying to bust it from the inside, but the type of glass that it was, it would just shatter in like a bunch of little tiny pieces on the other side. So as I was hitting it from the inside, it was going out to the crowd. I'm like, shit. I stopped doing that, and I got out, and I did it from the outside. You know what I mean? And that's when the infamous photo and video of me busting out the window. It took me all types of swings, man, just to get that sucker open. which, I mean, it don't make no difference. But that bottom window was already broke out, and then the window I was hitting was already smashed in. It just wasn't broke out, you know what I mean? So I just broke it out, and then when I did that, I finally got it out. I think I went back in and checked on some people, and then that's when everybody was like, all right, now we got to break down this door. And I'm like, that wasn't my plan, so no, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? So I get back out of the window, you know what I mean? And as I'm standing there, that's when, so I got the destruction of government property from the window, obviously. And then when I was standing outside the window, and I'm just standing there with my flags and stuff, and I'm just watching everything go on, I'm like just taking it all in. Like at this point, I'm like, I was just in shock. I'm like, this is insane. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking crazy. Did the craziest shit I thought, like, it's probably stupid. But I'm like, if these people, like, really think we're taking this Capitol or something, they're crazy. But if it happens and we happen to stay here, how the hell am I getting food delivered here? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't think the pizza delivery guy's just going to pull up to the Capitol and is taken over by a bunch of patriots. You know what I mean? I'm like, I hope they got a food court or something in here, you know? But it was just like this crazy, dumb thought that I had. And I'm like,
can I get Uber here? Like, do they Uber to the Capitol?
Can I get an Uber? You know what I mean? Leave a review. But as I'm standing there, like, because there was furniture and stuff, and as I learned, it's obviously older furniture, like really expensive furniture, I guess. But they start handing shit out of this window. And I don't know whether they were just doing, like, I don't know if they were just trying to make more room or what, but I was standing outside the window, so when they're handing stuff out, I'm right there. I grabbed it, and, like, I handed it to the crowd or whatever. So that's where I got my aiding and abetting and my theft of government property. You know what I mean? Which I didn't know that once the crowd got it, they were going to destroy it. You know what I mean? I'm not thinking of this stuff. I'm just standing there. I get touched in the back. Here, grab this. So, then you know what I mean? I just grab whatever they handed out. They handed out damn lamp, a chair, and I don't even know what else. You went
from the crying brawler to the crying abettor.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. And then talking about the crying thing, obviously wasn't crying. It was so after that, like, as I'm standing there, and you gotta think, I'm at this damn window. Like, I'm like, you would have to, like, legit go around this corner and, like, spray. So back to what I was saying about they weren't just spraying the situation, the front of the crowd right here. They were coming around in corners and spraying these super soakers and throwing these gas grenades out into the crowd. And it's all windy. So I'm like, I start getting hit with shit, like, from the side. Like, I'm not even ready, and I get hit with, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So then that's when I started getting pissed off, and I'm like, you know what I mean? I got a little too close, and I got down to, like, the steps in front of the tunnel, and then that's when I started, I guess, the violence. You know what I mean? Which the first thing was they were saying, I spit at them. Cause, dude, I'm like, I can't breathe. I got this shit all up my nose, in my eyes, all down my shirt. And that, like, for people that don't know, like, when you get, like, pepper sprayed and stuff like that, and it drips. It don't just hit you and then evaporate. Like, that stuff was all the way down, like, into my pants, into my junk, and everything's burning. From my face to my neck, my chest, my stomach, even down into my legs, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just getting irritated, like, because you can't get away from it. Like, you keep throwing water on yourself, it's helping your face a little bit, but it's not helping everything that's covered and, like, everything that's soaked, like your clothes that are soaked in it. Yeah. It ain't helping those parts, you know what I mean?
And the type of spray it is, too, I just know from experience, if you hit it with water, it reactivates it sometimes, so it's like...
Right, yeah, so and we didn't know at that time. So it's like everybody's just throwing a bunch of water on themselves. It helps for, like, a second, but like you said, it reactivates. You know what I mean? So it just starts getting worse. And it just all together, I'm just seeing these people get fucked up, dude. And like, don't get me wrong, but these guys are decked out. Riot gear.
Oh, yeah.
Gas masks, pads, shields, batons, you know what I mean? Like,
helmets, helmets, face covers, everything.
Exactly. And these people, they got things. They got things to throw. So my first thing was spit, you know what I mean? Because I come around and I was actually taking a video, and I come around and I spit at them.
I knew you were a spitter.
I said, fuck you, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, dude, I'm all jacked up, dude. Got this stuff in my nose, in my mouth, you know what I mean? So I'm already spitting. But then after that, that's when I started, I guess, getting involved, and I actually took the flags off of my pole, and I stuffed them in my sweatshirt pocket, because that's another thing. I get the situation, but there was too many flags on the ground. You know what I mean? And I didn't like that. I actually picked one up leaving, but
I did the same thing.
You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. I seen so many, but I walked by one that was like real close. I'm like, I can't just leave that on the ground. You know what I mean?
Right.
I actually have it to this day. I have it folded up in a drawer somewhere. But so, like, the first act of violence, as they would call it, was I took the flags off, and then I got over there and I swatted at the front shields of the front line of the tunnel. You know what I mean? And I did that a couple times, and then the stick broke, whatever. So now I'm in it. You know what I mean? Now I'm in the situation. Now I'm in the front lines. I'm like, you know what I mean? We just, like I tell people, we matched violence. You know what I mean? It didn't, other than Roseanne losing her life, you know what I mean? Which that's still an investigation, and it should be. And we got to figure out what the hell happened. Other than that, it's like, it was just up, down, up, down, up, down. Like, it didn't escalate to what they wanted. You know what I mean? Because obviously there was firearms all through the crowd. Obviously they had firearms. Like the one dude, they actually had the one dude. You remember the dude all decked out in either like the desert tan or green. I can't remember. But he came out with an actual rifle with the light on it. Like, they let him out a couple times in the front line. They opened it up, and he come out, and he pointed that rifle at everybody with the light on it. So I'm like, that's when, that first time that happened, I'm like, all right, now bodies are about to start dropping, because they're about to start laying some people out. Luckily, they didn't, but that's what I was thinking. I'm like, it was just matched energy, man. You know what I mean? They're spraying people, they're hitting people. So we're people that had their own little gas station pepper sprays or whatever. I don't know what the hell they were doing with it, but they're spraying them little things like they were going to do something. They're throwing stuff. They're swinging stuff. You know what I mean? Like my weapons that they said, the first was the flagpole. I think the second was it's like a traffic cone. It's like that plastic red cone that holds a fire extinguisher. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that plastic cone thing was like my second, and then like the third was they called it like a desk drawer or something, and I believe that came out of the room that I was at. You know what I mean? The window. But it was just crazy. But then I was there from that, probably the midpoint of that until the end. Like, once the footage is released of the CCTV and stuff like that, they eventually somehow, as I believe it was the same amount of time, I think it was when Trump said for people to leave or whatever, the curfew, this and that, I believe people started leaving like the lower levels. So like the crowd started moving, and they seen that, and that's when they started going even harder with the flashbangs, the gas grenades and stuff. Which at that point, I'm off to the side over by the window a little bit, and once that starts happening, it clogs up. Like, people turn around to leave, and then steps and everything clog up, so people could not move. And they seen that. You could clearly see that in the video too. And they are still throwing the flashbangs, the gas grenades, and spraying people as they can't move. You know what I mean? They're turned around. They're like leaving, but they can't move because it's all clogged up. At that time, dude, I legit got the biggest inhale of that gas. And I mean, I know a lot of people don't know, but that stuff, they say it's like almost like a honeycomb in your lungs with that stuff. Like it goes in and it stays in. Like you don't exhale that.
Yeah.
So I turned around and I was like going to walk away and I got one of them. It was like a gust of wind. It was like right near me, and a gust of wind just took the biggest cloud and went right in front of my face. And at that time, I took a breath in, like trying to like hold my breath because I seen it coming. But it's not just a cloud of gas. Like the gas is also like invisible too. Before that, I guess that's what I figured out, because I'm like, what the hell happened? I took a big breath of fresh air when I was thinking before this cloud hit me. Meanwhile, the gas was in the air. You know what I mean? And I legit buckled. I buckled to my knees. I put my face into my sweatshirt. I could not breathe for almost a minute. I legit started blacking out. I thought I was going to die right there on the steps. It was horrible. But I eventually, the crowd eventually was able to start getting down them steps, like on both sides of the steps by the scaffolding. And that's when like we were all leaving and stuff. And then that's when I walked past that flag. Because they were all over the place, but that one, I actually walked right past this one. It was too close. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not leaving it here. You know? So on the way out, I picked it up. And but that wasn't it, man. You know what I mean? Even though that's when everybody was leaving. Dude, the pain and like the breathe, it didn't stop. It went on for like, I want to say almost a week, maybe a week and a half. But like the whole drive back home, like, dude, I'm like, my skin's burning. I can't breathe out my nose. Even breathing through my mouth, like it was hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that was that. And then, do you want me to get into just starting to get followed and stuff like that?
Well, like, I did have one more question. With you said in the room they wanted to break the door down. What were people actually doing in the room when you got in there?
Well, when I first got in there, before the window was broke, they were all just standing there, and like a lot of people were videoing and taking pictures and stuff like that. But like, nobody could breathe. Like it was just crazy, and that's why like everybody's asking for water and gas masks and stuff. And there was actually a point where when I was outside the window, they were still asking for gas masks because it's just a little confined room, so all the wind blowing that shit in. You can actually see me in one of the videos if I ever get my hands on it again. Like I'm actually like to the crowd and put my hand up to my face like as like a gas mask. I'm like, gas mask. Nobody had none. You know what I mean? So, but while I was in there, like other than just standing around like struggling to breathe and stuff, they were just moving furniture. You know what I mean? Like the table was flipped over. Everything's like pushed off to the sides of the rooms or the sides of the room. And like, you know what I mean? And then I guess that's when they started talking about, because there was a door to another room and it was locked. And that's when that was my turning point. You know what I mean? Because that's not what I was there for. I wasn't even there to go to the Capitol. You know what I mean? So like, I'm thinking these people need help and stuff, which they did. Don't get me wrong, but like once they got like their fresh air, it's like, all right, you come out of the window then, you know what I mean? Come on out. No, they didn't want to. Now more people are coming in, which could be because, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, well, you opened a window for them. All right, well, if I did that, then why was that one window already open and with mad people in there? And then after the window broke out, there was like 2 people, I think, that went through the one I broke. Everybody else was still going through the little one at the bottom. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they were trying to say that that was like also an aiding and abetting thing. It was like I aided and abetted people to get in.
Aiding and abetting
a
fiesta.
You know what I mean? And then you got people like, oh, let's break down this door, and I'm like, no, I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm getting out of here. But they ended up getting through that door, which we've seen the footage, and a few people we won't name, but we've seen a few people in there trying to find certain things. I don't want to give it out by saying what they said, but we used to joke about it. When he got in there, we were, find the blah, 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 you know what I mean? But that was my turning point when I'm like, I'm not, you know what I mean? This is a little much. Like, I'm not trying to break in here and, like, run through this, you know? So
going from there, though, you know, you retreat, everybody's, you know, by the time everybody has kind of enough, what's going through your mind by the end of the day? Like, you came down from PA. Take us from that point on. There's a curfew. People leave. What's going through your mind, and how do you get caught?
Yeah, so like as I'm leaving, I'm still in shock. Like I'm adrenaline rushing through me. I'm like, but it starts to settle. You know what I mean? And that's when I'm like almost like, I mean, people want to sound like, hell yeah, like all this stuff, like, which, yeah, it was. Like, it was crazy, and, like, as a testosterone thing and, like a patriotic thing. Like,
adrenaline.
You know what I mean? Yeah. We went down there, we fucked, you know what I mean? Like, there was violence and stuff, like, but it's like, it wore off, and I'm like, I was pissed off. Like, I was almost sad, bro. I'm like, that we came to this point. You know what I mean? That even had to be a thing for, like, what happened to all of us, like, throughout 2020 and all that. You know what I mean? Like, what they were doing with the lockdowns and all the fraud, everything put together. It was like, it was just a whole sad thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
But as I'm leaving, I'm like, the adrenaline's wearing off a little bit. It's still rushing or whatever. You know what I mean? Luckily, because most of the walk back to my vehicle, like, I barely felt the pepper spray and the gas in my lungs and stuff. You know what I mean? That's probably from, you know what I mean, walking and then actually getting real fresh air, you know? But it was just a mixed emotion thing, man. I was excited and proud, but at the same time, knowing that Ashley Babbitt got shot, Roseanne got killed, like, and people were getting annihilated. Like, that's the main thing that even got me closer and closer, because I'm not that type of, like, I'm not going to see this or think that something's going on and then run from the situation, especially something like that. You know what I mean? So many people in this crowd, including women and children, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's what got me involved. But I'm like, it was just a mix of emotions, a little bit of mad, a little bit of sad, but still had that excitement that, like, we were able to have the balls to do whatever was done over there. You know what I mean? And at the time, you're thinking, you're like, oh, well, nothing really happened. Like, you know,
right.
As the time we went through all our time, it was different for us because we were part of it, and we seen every little thing, heard every conversation and everything about it and what it was doing to our country for the better. You know what I mean? Exposing the fraud. These people are these people, those people are those people, like separating who's who and who really stands for the country and who doesn't. You know what I mean? And that's the, we'll get to that, but, like, that's the screwed up point that we're at now, is that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I support this congressman. He's talking about January 6th and stuff. Like, he's super patriotic. That motherfucker wasn't talking about it when we were in solitary confinement.
Right.
They were scared to talk about it.
They hated us.
So I'm not with that stuff. I'm not with that. Oh, now it's the cool thing to talk about. Now you want to talk about it, act all patriotic, like you love this country. I get it. There was a bunch of violence and there was stuff that shouldn't have happened, but like back in the day, there would have been bodies everywhere. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that it didn't go that route, because I was not on either side of that, because it, like we all talked about before, like it wasn't that far gone to where people had to lose their life. And that's what was so sad about them girls and them other guys that lost their life that day. But two of the two main, Ashley and Roseanne, like by the hands of the cops and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it shouldn't have went that far. Like I said, we matched energies, and I believe that was enough, which it was enough. You know what I mean? Obviously, because shit's changed. A lot of stuff has changed for the better, and we exposed a lot of things and a lot of people.
Yeah, and the it was, that day was largely reactive, not proactive. You know,
right.
Especially with regard to the matching the energy that we received.
Absolutely.
You know, I didn't go there for a riot. I went there for a protest, and then they started throwing flashbangs at me, and I got mad. It was like, and nobody wants to hear the perspective of the people who showed up there for innocuous reasons.
Right.
So,
because a lot of them still think we're insurrectionists.
Yeah, there's a word.
It's like if we wanted to overthrow, it would have been overthrown. Period. We weren't there to do that. We were there to protest, and they started doing foul shit, and we just matched them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, are you sure? Are you sure, Jordan? You sure you weren't there to overthrow the government with a traffic cone?
I disavow. Yeah, I mean, I was going to take over the whole Capitol just with that cone, man.
Fucking monster.
You know what I mean?
How long after January 6th, how long after that did it take for them to come find you? So,
I believe it was like 12 days, but they followed me for 3 before they picked me up. So the 6th happened. It was almost like 2 weeks. I think I was arrested on, I think the 18th or the 19th. I get it mixed up because they arrested me at like 11 something. And then by the time I got somewhere, so I don't know if they went by the arrest or by the time I was checked into Butler County or their FBI building, one or the other.
Yeah.
But because I think it says the 19th, but I was like actually arrested on the 18th, the night of the 18th, is what I believe. But I actually have, so the phone I got back from them that they took when they arrested me, I still have videos of them following me. Like, cause like the first day and the second day, I'm noticing, I'm not really, paying attention, but like I was noticing like the same kind of cars around me at all times. And then it got serious the third day, the last day, the day I was arrested. I woke up and I'm like, I had to go because I got into a quad accident like a month or 2 before that, and I broke my collarbone, my ribs, punctured a lung, messed up my hip and my ankle. But I had to go through physical therapy. So me and my son, I woke up and I took my son with me. I went to physical therapy, and that's when I really noticed, because it was like it's in like a corner. It's like a corner building, and they got like these big windows, and there's like the road right in front of it. And like as I'm doing my therapy, like this is when it hit me. It was when there was like cars, these unmarked cars, like pulling up in front of the building right where I'm at, but like slowing down, almost stopping, like to where I noticed. I'm like, okay, these are the vehicles that have been following me. Okay, I'm definitely being followed.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. So when I'm done with that, Lexi picks up my son, and I go over and I see the guy. He's parked like across the way behind another building, like where people don't park. So I'm like, highly noticeable. I don't know what he was trying to do. He wasn't hiding, that's for sure. But and my truck got tint all around it. So as I got into my truck, I opened my door and I got in and I shut it, and I seen his car moving, and it went around the other building, so it's behind the other building. I can't see it. So I grabbed my phone. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start recording. I recorded, and I said, like, I said something about being followed, or so I said, if this guy stops, like, and he comes around to where I can see him, he sees that my truck didn't move, so he pulls into a parking spot. I'm like, all right, you know what I mean? Now it's on. I know for sure.
Right.
And I'm on the video, and I'm like, watch, this guy's going to follow me. I pulled out of the way. I went to the stop sign, and I got on the main road. And, like, then I see him pull up. I'm like, all right, it's official now. So then I either go home and get my gym stuff, or I go straight to the gym, one or the other. But as I'm going, I stop to get gas. Same thing. Stop to get gas. And he stopped up, like, right next door, up behind these little trees or whatever. Still can see him. So I'm like, I don't know. You're definitely not hiding. I videoed that a little bit. And then I went to the gym, and I went there with a friend of mine. And I told him, I'm like, I'm being followed. You know what I mean? And he's like, man, you're just being paranoid. Like, you don't got to worry about it. I'm like, no, bro. And from the second level, same thing with the gym. It's got all glass in the front. You can see out the windows. But from the second level, you're higher up, and you can see out the front windows. And I pointed to two different cars, and they're in two different locations of the parking lot. And I said, that one and that one. You know what I mean? They're definitely following me. I have them on camera, and I showed him the video. And he's like, I wouldn't worry about it. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, don't worry about it. We do a little bit of working out. And then I leave there, and same thing. I get a video going down to the stoplight from the gym, and now there's three of them. You know what I mean? So it's like they're packing up. You know what I mean? I'm doing a lot of moving, which I found out the more moving you're doing, the more they have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I go home, not thinking nothing. I go home and I back into my spot, and I'm on the street. Like my driveway is right on the main street. And I back into my spot, and the dude that was following me at the bottom of the hill, he wasn't behind me. So when I backed into my spot, I just sat in my truck. I'm like waiting for him to pull up or pull by. And it took a good like 2-3 minutes. And he eventually came up and he went by. And I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? So I think nothing of it. I'm like, I know what's going on now. I go inside. I had plans a little later. So I go inside and I lay down and I take a nap, whatever. And Lexi and my son leave. And I wake up, and this was at this time, me and my friends, we just got a little, we rented a little spot down this. They have a storage building, but this one floor is strictly for like studios and band practice. You know what I mean? Little rooms that you can rent out. So me and my buddies got like a little music studio got going on, and we were down there building up everything, building up the booth and getting everything down there the last couple of days. So when I get into my truck to go, I pull out and I go up my street, and right up my street is an entrance to like a soccer field, like 2 soccer fields. It's like a little park, and this guy's sitting right there at the entrance. So I go up, and then he pulls out behind me, blah, blah, blah. We get to, because at the time I had a Trailblazer SS that had a 6.0 LS motor in it. So it had some balls to it, you know what I mean? So I'm like, you know what I mean? They're following me either way. I would do a little cat and mouse here. You know, you want a cat and mouse game? We'll play a cat and mouse game. He was like a little behind me. I get on the highway and I fucking punch it. You know what I mean? And that took off. But there was a little bit of traffic, so I'm like, I wasn't running. You know, I was just fucking with the guy, because I'm like, all right, you want to follow me? Then follow me. Come on. So I went up the ways a little bit, probably about a mile or two, and then I slowed down because the exit's coming and stuff. And I kind of waited for him. You know what I mean? Because I was thinking that too. I'm like, all right, I don't want to get a fucking trying to run charge, or like them trying to say that I was trying to escape justice or whatever wordage they use. So I slowed down. Here he comes. So I waited until he got like pretty close behind me, and then I took my exit, so he knew what I was doing. And he followed me all the way down to the studio, and I parked there. I get out and I go in, and I'm talking to my boys now, and I'm like, hey man, I'm being followed. You know what I mean? They're most likely going to pick me up, you know, and they had a little smoke deck out the back of the building. And we went out there, and from there, you could see, like, around the back of the building, the side of the front. And the one was sitting there. And I'm like, there's his car right there, you know what I mean, this and that. So we did our night, you know what I mean, we were building up some stuff, listening to music, bullshitting. I'm like, you know what I mean, if I don't see you guys, you know what I mean, whatever. And then Lexi starts texting me, and she's like blowing me up. She's like, babe, there's cop cars. They keep slowing down and stopping in front of the house and stuff. And I'm like, now I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, we're about to get raided. And
Yeah.
I don't want them to get raided when I'm not there. Cause I know, you know what I mean? I know how it works. So I'm like, fuck, you know what I mean? I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. You know what I mean? So I texted my lawyer at the time. He wasn't a federal lawyer, so he was just helping me out with just the situation. And then he's the one that got me my first lawyer, which was just the worst lawyer in Pittsburgh. I won't say his name. I'm not going to be that petty. But if you do your research, you can find out who my first lawyer was. And I don't recommend that man. But as I'm walking out, I text him. I text her, and I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. You know what I mean? I'm coming home. I'll be there in a couple minutes. And then I text him. I said, listen, they've been following me. They're outside here where I'm at. They're outside my house. I think I'm about to get raided. So, you mean, just be ready for the call. So I go out. As I walk out, I see the one car. It's like a little white Cruise up the street. And then across the street, there's like a business that at nighttime, there's never no cars in the parking lot. So I see a Tahoe with its front end kind of poking out the side of the building, where you can see the front end and the windshield and stuff. And then the guy down the street in the car that's been following me all day. So I'm like, all right, here we go. And then I see this big white van, like 2 cars away from my truck. And I'm like, I knew it was coming out. I kind of thought that they were going to let me get home first, but they already had it set up. Like, they were ready for my house. They were ready for me. I unlocked my truck, and I opened my door. And as I sat into my truck, in between my windshield and my open door, I seen that Tahoe across the street, like, creeping out, like, blow with its lights still off. And then it starts coming towards me, and then bodies just starts coming around these cars with guns pointed at me. Don't fucking move. I get back out of my car. I put my hands up. They just kept saying, don't move, fucking shoot you, whatever. Like, I ain't doing nothing. I said, I got a gun on me, blah, blah, blah. So that went down. They got my gun from me, which they loved my gun. It was a Kimber 1911 special 45. But they were complimenting my gun, this and that. They put me in cuffs and stuff. They were, you know what I mean, going through my truck, all this stuff, and then they put me in the back of that Tahoe. And then there was a little radio on, like their little walkie-talkie radio, and they're talking, like, back and forth, like, to the guy that wasn't even in the car. And then the guy gets in the car that I'm in, and as he gets in, they're talking. They're like, all right, we're about to raid his house or whatever. We're about to go into his house, blah, blah, blah. And he shut it. They said something about my son or something. And he shut the radio off, and he said, you don't want to hear that. You know what the fuck that did to me, man?
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what I mean? And then as we're talking, I'm like, they're talking about raiding my house. I'm like, don't shoot my dog. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like, who's Zeus? I'm like, yeah, of course you know his name. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, he's a pit bull. He's a baby.
They knew your dog's name?
Yeah. They knew my dog's name, which I mean, I wasn't surprised, but in that split second, I was surprised. I was like, yeah. You know what I mean? But I'm like, just don't shoot my dog. Like, I know you guys are trigger happy. You love shooting dogs, especially ones that are wagging their tails. You know what I mean? So I'm bullshitting with them. And then, you know what I mean? That was it. They did my house or whatever, which it was okay. I mean, they still were a little extra with it, you know what I mean? But they kind of took care of my family. They just yelled for Lexi's name and stuff like that, which we actually have that video too. So one day that'll be released. But they just yelled her name, or they blocked my street off, SWAT cars and stuff, cop car, this and that, screaming her name over the loudspeaker, telling her to come out. She come out, and like they put her in cuffs, this and that. But she's like, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna go get your son or whatever. And she's like, absolutely not. You're not doing that. They said you can take these cuffs off. I'm not doing it. I'll go get my son myself. You know what I mean? Which I'm proud of her for that, because a lot of people are like, okay, no, fuck that. You know what I mean? He don't know you. You don't know us. Nothing. Like, you're not going up there by yourself touching my son. Period. You're not touching my son.
Right.
So the lady was okay. She took the I'm pretty sure she took one cuff off her hand and like escorted her up to get my son. He slept through the whole thing, which I'm glad, because like, I mean, it was already traumatizing enough, like all we've been through. I could only imagine if he had to go through them, like coming in, ripping our fucking house apart and all this stuff, guns and this and that. But yeah, they did that. She grabbed him and then brought him downstairs and laid him. We had like a little futon in the living room at the time. And they did all their stuff and went through the whole house and stuff, got my outfit, got any evidence that they needed, blah, blah, blah. But the weird fucking thing is I don't know who their photographer was, but they had a picture of my living room in the futon, whatever, by itself. But then they had a picture, like, you keep going through the pictures, they had another one, and my son was sleeping on the futon. They have a picture of my son. You know what I mean? Which I thought was fucking weird.
And it wasn't.
Like, when you already, like, period, even if there wasn't another picture of it, like, I get that, but, like, you don't take pictures of people. You're taking pictures of things, rooms, this and that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you took a picture of my son. My son's 7 years old at the time.
Right.
Sleeping on this futon. You know what I mean?
That's weird.
Yeah, that shit drove me nuts. But,
well, I was gonna say, like, how did, I mean, you knew they were following you for like 3 days. How did they, like, did you get turned in by someone? Did they get a fucking tip? Did they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had 4 people on my paperwork. And, the one, it was my barber, my local barber, and actually, like, I kind of considered him a friend. Like, we were hanging out and stuff, both going through sobriety, and I've been going up his barbershop for years and stuff, taking my son up there, everything. But they must have, because I stopped up there too while I was being followed. But at this time, like, I went up because, like, we were both in the faith and stuff like that. So I went up there and I'm bullshitting. I'm like, hey, she's coming down the pipe, blah, blah, blah. Asked him to pray for me and stuff, you know what I mean? And he did, which, you know, I mean, I'm thankful for. But at these times, I don't know what's going on. And I guess they pulled up on with a picture of me is what, because he actually called me and told me certain shit. So they pulled up on him, showed him a picture of me, asked who it was. He said who it was and stuff, because he called me the one night. He was like, hey, first, this is what he said. He said, my uncle is in law enforcement, blah, blah, blah. And he come to my house, and he was in my house telling me that I had to work with him to turn me in, blah, 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 blah. And I told him, fuck off, get the fuck out of my house. And I'm like, I'm on the phone. I'm like, I already know what this is. So I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. But he told me pretty much everything. He didn't tell me details of, like, what I found out through my paperwork. But he did call me and tell me that his uncle pulled up on him, and then the FBI pulled up on him, showed him a picture, but that was it, blah, blah, blah. You know how that goes. Oh, that was it, motherfucker. So I got that paperwork, found out this man, everything. He got in the car with them, drove and showed them where I lived. So that's, I mean, they obviously knew or whatever, because they're the FBI, but that's extensive.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That call was,
you're gonna get in.
That call was
exactly.
a setup. He was fishing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying too. Is like, So I had the 4 people, but only 2 of them they showed, which was weird. I'm like, I was just figuring, because the other 2, because it was him, his uncle, were the main ones, and I guess because they actually worked with them and stuff like that, that's why they were able to give me that information. But the other ones was a girl I went to school with, and then some teacher or something, which the girl I went to school with, I read that paperwork. It was like, I guess she called or whatever with information saying that she went to school with me a long time ago, haven't seen me since, whatever, said I was a troublemaker. But they wanted to sit down at Starbucks or something, and she denied it, which, I mean, you already gave them fucking whatever information you had. Like, what are you scared of now? You're scared of going in there and not being able to tell them nothing because you don't even fucking know me? You know what I mean? Whatever. But then another one was like just some random person. I guess it was a teacher or something that said in my paperwork. But I believe I know, I don't know who it is, but before January 6th, a whole different story. Our house got burglarized while we were on vacation by my mother-in-law and her boyfriend, and they took our stuff and things like that, but they took my gun. So that was like the first time I had to call the cops and stuff, because I talked to my lawyer. I'm like, listen, I know who did this, but like I wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't for my gun, because I know I don't want anything to happen with my prints all over it, blah, blah, blah. And he told me like to call the cops and just let them know. Meanwhile, a cop comes up and he's talking about it. It was like 85%. So he's like, you know that's illegal, right? I'm like, no, it's not. First of all, I know. Plus, my lawyer just told me to call you. He's like, yeah, well, I collect guns. And I'm like, so do I. You know what I mean? So he's just on this like tangent of like, this is illegal. So I tell him, get the fuck off my porch. I said, listen, dude, I just called you because there's a gun missing and it has my prints on it. Something happens. I just want to document it. All right. He's still going on. I just told him, get the fuck off my porch. I said, you're no help. Get off my porch. Blah, blah, blah. But in between that, I tried to go and buy a new one because, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I went to a gun shop, and as I'm at this gun shop, I'm going through the paperwork or whatever. And at this time, they were already following me, I guess, because the background check was taking forever. I was standing there for about 2 hours and still nothing. But there was these 2 people there, a guy and his wife or something. And they brought up January 6th and stuff. And I'm like, and they were like talking about stuff that didn't happen, or like, I guess what the news was saying. And I started speaking about it. I'm like, no, I was, you know what I mean? I was there and that didn't happen. That type of conversation. You know what I mean? So I figured from that, cause it never went through. So I'm like, all right, bro, just call me. Like if it goes through, whatever. But that's what I kind of pointed out. I'm like, all right, girl from school. And then the other one was obviously the guy or his wife.
You think,
you know what I mean? 'Cause,
I mean, you know, things just align sometimes. I mean, you already had enough people turn you in, but you think maybe the people there that were talking about it were planted there to get you to talk about it? Or do you think that's just a coincidence?
Dude, at that time, no. But after what we've been through, like through the DC gulag and all that stuff, and actually noticing how many plants, I would not be surprised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's that was my. So I had the 4, but the 2 that I know because they gave me that information.
So after they picked you up, they took you to the county jail?
No, they took me down. So it's called Carson Street. It's down on the other side of the river in Pittsburgh. It's the south side. It's like all bars and tattoo shops and stuff like that. But it's a long strip of bars and tattoo shops, and then once you get through that, their FBI headquarters is down there, and that's where they took me. Like we're, you know what I mean, as men and stuff, we're all bullshitting on the way there, not talking about anything. Get that straight. But that's what I tell people is like, because we were bullshitting about regular stuff, but then as soon as we get to the headquarters and they put me in the room, they read off my charges, and they're like, "So do you want to talk to us?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "You guys are cool and all, but I'm not talking about that." So get going. And it was quick. They were like, all right. And they put me back in the car, and then they took me up to, it's called Butler County Prison. It's about an hour away. And it was a federal holding facility. and that's where I started.
Well, if you could, I know you met a couple J6ers along the way to DC, and I know most people, they go through what they call diesel therapy, where the marshals basically bounce you around the country. Different people go through, to different facilities. So you start out at Butler County that night. Where do you go from there? Who do you meet? And when do you finally get to the DC Gulag?
Okay. Yeah, I got what was it, 18th or 19th, probably the morning of the 19th in the middle of the night. I get to Butler County Prison. And at that time, they're still doing the bullshit COVID stuff, so we're 23-1. But I'm there for about a month, maybe? Month, two, wait. I think about a month and a half, maybe. And I think, so 2 months I was there. And then when I was leaving, I seen this dude, this fucking badass looking dude. He got this fucking shirt on. It said something along the lines of, "I am silently judging your welds." And I'm like, "I like your shirt." You know what I mean? So we start bullshitting and stuff. And then we're all waiting to get put in the paddy wagon. This is like leaving, because I wasn't in the same unit as them. But we were leaving. We were all shackled up, and we're getting in line to get in the paddy wagon to go down to county jail. But then we're bullshitting and stuff. And then come to find out, it's Pete Schwartz. And he was obviously January 6th too. So, like, we just fucking instantly clicked. And, like, you know what I mean? We were both talking about God, January 6th, like, love for guns. And, you know what I mean? He was talking about welding and all that stuff. But, like, very informative and very smart man when it comes to biblical stuff, which I like. I mean, I know a lot, but we all got more learning to do. You know what I mean? And it's never ending. But we rode in the paddy wagon together down to my county jail, and that's in downtown Pittsburgh, and called Allegheny County. And we were down there sitting in the tank. Man, probably like a whole day, man. But we're sitting there bullshitting about everything, getting to know each other, talking about our life stories, all this stuff, a little bit of January 6th and stuff like that. And then once we were put into units, we were separated. So I think we were there like 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And then, then they pull us all out. 2 weeks later, they pull us all out again, and we're down. We're getting ready. We're all getting dressed in our civilian clothes, getting shackled up, and then the marshals are there. And then we get taken from there together. We get taken from there and get put in a van, like a paddy wagon. They drove us out to, it's called Moon Township. That's where our international airport, Pittsburgh International Airport, is. But they took us like to the back of it, like almost like we're like next to the Air Force. We pull in closer to the Air Force base than the airport. But there's a big old plane waiting. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. They take us out of that.
Con Air.
Yeah, Con Air. And just like I said in my paper to the judge in my sentencing, it's nothing like the movie. All right. The movie made it look so badass. No, this is just an old rundown plane. I can guarantee that it doesn't pass inspection. This damn roof, the roof and the ceiling flexes so much I thought it was going to blow apart. But they put us on there, flew us out to Oklahoma, put us on a patio or their bus, took us to Grady County. We were in Grady County for probably the weekend, I would say. And then from Grady County, they put us back on the bus, took us back out to the airport, put us back on Con Air, and flew us over to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We get off the Harrisburg airport, get put in a van, and then we're in there with a couple other guys. But then they drive from Harrisburg down to Baltimore just to pick some inmates up. We didn't stay there. We just picked some inmates up and then from there drove down to Northern Neck, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were put in Northern Neck, Virginia, and that was a shit show in itself. Like we're in there, they're trying to shove these long Q-tips up our nose, touching our brains, and so I'm like, a couple people were denying because they wanted us to take the vaccine.
Right.
They're like telling us that we got to take the vaccine, this and that. And we're like, we're not doing that. And the lady's like, fuck it, put them in the COVID cell. I don't give a fuck if these Trump supporters die. You know what I mean? If they want to die, they can die, blah, blah, blah. We're like, oh, shit, here we go. You know what I mean? We already know how, you know. But we get put in this big, huge room. It's like open dorm. Dude, it's like 60 bunk beds in this one room. That's how Grady County is, too, but it's like the bunk beds are 3 stacked 3 high.
Yeah.
And it's all along the wall. Like, you never leave the room. There's a little bath, 2 little toilets, and like 2 showers. But same thing with this place. It got 2 TVs, but it got 60. You know what I mean? 60 guys there. So it's like constantly loud. Even when they shut the lights off, you're supposed to be in your bunk. This and that. Just constantly loud. And then we're around all these people that are sick. This and that. And then as we're there, me and Pete, we bunked like next to each other, and as we were there, he didn't get sick. I think he might have been sick. No, I don't think he was sick because he always made fun of me for being the one that got sick. But I got sick, and then we had a guy come in, and like it was Chris Worrell. Or no. Damn it. Where did we meet? Hold on.
Webster, Shane,
Webster,
Julian.
yeah. Webster,
Tom Webster.
But I forgot about Webster where we met him. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know if he rode in with us or not. I think he might have came in first, and then it was Worrell, because I don't remember meeting Webster before. I totally forgot about Julian too, from Grady County, because they had him in a different type of custody because of his situation and who they made him out to be, which was total bullshit. Leaving Grady County is when we met up with Julian, and they kept calling him like Stormtrooper or something like that. You know, they just kept calling him names, talking shit to him. He was in a black box and everything.
Stormtrooper Cater. That was his signature later.
Really?
Yeah, that was his Pittsburgh Patriot, Stormtrooper Cater.
Okay, I don't know if it came from that or
probably
if they've seen that somewhere, because that's the first I heard it. But yeah, so me, Pete, Julian, I believe that's who it was. I'm drawing a blank on Webster right now where exactly we met up with him, but he was with us. We got to Virginia, and then they split us up again. Julian went somewhere else. Me and Pete went over here to this unit, and then I believe it was Webster, and we were all tight. You know what I mean? We were all cool. And then the one night they brought in Chris Worrell, and he's all talking to us and telling us he's a Proud Boy, and because at first he was a little shy, and then we were talking to him, and I think Pete told him that us 3 were in there for January 6th, and he's like, oh yeah, me too. That's when he started to open up, and then he started talking about the Proud Boys, and we all clicked together again. But then from there, when we were leaving there, that's when we met. That's when we met Shane. It was Shane. What were the other names on there? Am I missing somebody?
Oh, I don't know. I've heard.
It was me, Pete, Webster, Worrell, Julian,
Shane,
and I believe that's it. But in the holding cell, getting ready to leave is when we met Shane. So then from there, they drove us to DC, and I believe that was April 13th. So from January 18th or 19th to April 13th, we were just in transit everywhere. But we finally got to D.C. and we're sitting there, and they do all kinds of crazy shit. Dude, like I've never seen before. Like I've had my fingerprints taken, this and that, pictures, but I've never gotten pictures of my eyes. Like they legit put you in this little thing, you put your face up to it, and they take a picture of your eyes.
Yeah, retina scan.
Yeah, which is like once we got enough time in the DC jail, like with seeing all the stuff on the news and them wearing masks and stuff, that kind of made sense. But at the same time, I was like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But they did our tests and stuff. They took COVID tests, this and that, and I'm like, me, Worrell, and Webster were the only ones that popped for COVID. So them other guys, they went to C2A, which was their quarantine before you got to C2B. But me, Webster, and Worrell went up to like a whole separate unit.
Medical
it was like the medical unit, which we sat there for, I think, 12, 13 days. And it was, you were only let out for like a 10, 15-minute shower. That's it.
Same thing happened to me.
Yeah, the phone was rolled to you, you know what I mean? And then, I'm not going to get into all that, but there was a bunch of medical stuff going on with Worrell. Now, I'm just not going to get into it because I don't know, like lawsuits and stuff like that. I don't want to get into that. But the treatment, man, like he kept trying to get help, and they would not help him. They kept coming up, and they're like, "Oh, you're fine." You know what I mean? This man's laying on the floor. You know what I mean? He can't breathe, this and that. And I'm like, this is jacked up. You know what I mean? We can't leave our fucking cell. Like, what the hell is going on? So we did that for almost 2 weeks. And then finally, we get taken downstairs to C2A. And we walk in. And, dude, I will never forget. It's Dan and Jeff. And as soon as we walk in, they're sitting there waiting because they're like detail. They're sitting there waiting, standing there waiting. As soon as we walk in, Jeff goes, "What's up, you fucking terrorists?" Dude, at first, like, I'm like, because after like all this treatment and like being sick and being in solitary confinement, like solitary confinement for 2 weeks, like I'm walking in, like it was hilarious, but I'm still like, I laughed a little bit, but I was still like, what the fuck? But then come to find out, dude, Jeff is just like that. Shout out to Jeff, dude. He's fucking hilarious. But we go in there, and it's the same thing, man. They put us in these cells, and these cells, dude, they got fucking black mold everywhere, all over the walls. I even had grievances. Like, I didn't even know how to do it, but like we were talking and stuff, and I'm like, dude, they had to move my cell because I had black mold in it, but they didn't do it right away. You know what I mean? They come in, they're like, "Oh, that's not black mold." Dude, it's dripping down the wall. Like, the wall is wet, you know? But I did a grievance about that, which I think they took that when they raided the cells the one time. But we were in there for a good while, and we kept hearing from next door, because the units were together, just split by 2 doors, one lower door and one upper door. But we kept hearing people over there, and then when we were out for like our hour rec, sometimes we would go over to the door, and there were people from C2B talking to us and telling us about how it is over there and who's over there and what, you know what I mean, things going on. We were over there for a while, and then eventually they moved us from C2A, and they moved all of us into C2B. And that's when we met just about everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember when you would come over, that's when they started putting people. I know there were people now at that point. There were people in the second tier. And I think you started right at the end of the top tier, kind of like towards the stairs before you got moved above me.
Yeah.
When
because I was up there for a little while, and then that's when because Ryan Nichols was down in 34, and that's the corner, the top. That was above when Pete moved down to the bottom. That was above his cell. But yeah, because he was moving down because he got on the detail and he was moving down to the lower level, I believe.
Yeah, he took Dominic Pizzola's old cell downstairs because Pizzola got taken to the whole. I think it was Corporal Brown or whatever. They got into an argument about his cell door or something. So that cell opened up, and then Ryan went downstairs to that cell. And then
yeah, and he come over to my cell because he's like, "Hey man, my cell's gonna be opening up. Do you want it?" Which was cool, you know what I mean? He could have just moved and just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he come down and offered, which I was like, hell yeah, because I was bitching. I'm like, dude, there ain't nothing. Like, there's a TV out here, but like I couldn't really see it because the pole was in the way. And I'm like, we're all the way down the end. Like, you can't see nothing out. Like, you're in solitary confinement, 23-1, in a cell 23 hours a day. Like, and even going to the door, you can't see anything. Like, it'd be different to be able to go to the door and be able to see what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, it was pretty cool. Like, he did that for me, you know what I mean? I moved down there.
I don't remember. Was there anyone when you were first at the end of the hall, was there anyone in the cell next to you, or were you isolated there?
I believe I was isolated. I can't 100% say that. I don't think there was anybody in the big ones.
I feel like
the end ones are the bigger ones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I noticed you in a cell. I think we talked maybe once or twice just so I could get your family's info to pass on.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was ever otherwise really up there hanging out in that area. It was just like, well, why would you? There's nothing over here besides poor Jordan in the corner there. But like, so you got moved eventually. So like, how long do you think you were there before you moved into 34?
I mean, it was a good minute because I mean, just like moving into cells, period, you had to do extensive scrubbing down and like cleaning it because you're locked in a bathroom. Like, that's where you live. So you had to take care of it any which way you could. So I think I was at probably a couple weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
So when you came over to B, obviously there were more of us there, but would you say it was more or less the same as A? You were still 23-1. What were the conditions there?
Yeah, the solitary was the same. But it was almost better for just a hope wise. You know what I mean? Like, now you're in with everybody. You know what I mean? We're all going through the same stuff. Most of us. I'm not going to get into that either for lawsuit reasons. But we're all in the same situation. Locked down. Don't get out. Only get out for an hour. Got to shower, phone call, make food, get back in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But actually being over there, because hearing about it, you know what I mean? This is where everybody's at. And then even living there, like when people came, they're like, "Oh my God, I've been hearing about this. Like, oh, it's amazing." I mean, the idea, yeah, like that we're all together and like almost like a safe haven feeling, even though we weren't safe at all. But it was like once we got over there, it was like a whole different vibe, man. It was like, now this is official. Like, we shouldn't be moved anymore. Like, you always have that hope of like, all right, now it's done. Now I can just sit and do my time and focus on what I need to focus on. But other than that, like, it was a lot better knowing, because then you start getting information. You know what I mean? Like, you, Brian, and other people like coming to sales, introducing each other. And then we get our little bit of time out, this and that. And we meet each other, start hearing different stories, and then start hearing like kind of how this jail works, and you know what I mean? Because like a lot of people, they don't know, like including myself. I mean, I've been locked up a couple times, but I've never in my life knew anything about solitary confinement or like how any of that stuff works. It's like, so going through all these few places, like the only few places that were like open was, I think we only had a couple times that we were open in Butler, but then the Grady and Northern Neck, Virginia, they were open dorm. So it was like you were still confined in a space, but it wasn't in a cell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then once, so you're not ready for any of that. You know what I mean? You get into an actual cell, and then you know this is the destination. This is where you're headed. Because everybody knew throughout like transit and stuff that like, okay, they're shipping people to DC. Like we got word from that. You know what I mean? They are shipping people down to DC. So sometimes you're thinking, like, even myself, I'm like, I don't want to go to DC. You know what I mean? I want to fucking stay here in my state, not far from home, because I got a couple video visits in Butler, and I'm like, you know what I mean? It's just the one that you don't want uprooted. You want to set your roots. You want to kind of get comfortable, but that's the whole point of diesel and jet fuel therapy, is to keep you uprooted and keep you uncomfortable, to force you into doing things you don't want to do. You know what I mean? But being there, dealing with it, kind of being told how it works, who people are, it definitely helped out.
So while you were there, I don't want to skip too far ahead, but, in general, like, you were there for about 2 years, I guess, maybe 3.
It was like 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, because with my transit and stuff, I think that was around 6 months. 6 months, maybe.
How would you?
Yeah, because I got there April.
How would you summarize the situation from start to finish in your time, for your time in DC? Obviously, you did end up taking a plea deal. And obviously you were sentenced to prison after that. What were did the conditions of confinement influence your choice to take a plea deal? And if so, like, could you get into a little bit of what it was like? Obviously there was brotherhood and camaraderie, but outside of that, what was it just like for you living in that dump for those years?
I mean, honestly, it's crazy to say, but sometimes I miss it. Like it's twisted. Like I can't express that. Like what I mean by that. It's like I miss what most of us had, because there are details that people need to know. But what we did have, like the brotherly, everybody's mostly patriots. We were all together. We fought together. You know what I mean? Everything was together. The solitary confinement, the getting out, the time. You know what I mean? We were all crunched on time, but we all kept fighting and kept each other afloat. You know what I mean? So like that part of it is kind of what I miss, especially, shitty food, commissary, like just like when we were able to put food together and stuff like that, be together. That was what I miss. But the solitary confinement for so long, the not being able to see my family for 2 years, 2 days. The first time I seen them was, and I was on the outside. This was when I was in 34, on the outside wall to like where a lot of the white shirts and the guards park. But they have grates. They have grates on the windows for people that don't know. It's not just clear window, because they have what's that called out there, Tim?
The graveyard or the driveway, or I know there's a park. There's a parking lot, and there's a graveyard.
The thing where all the like, because they had the grates on the windows for the girls, like for inmates not really to be able to see. You know what I mean? For people not to be able to kind of communicate with.
Yeah, it was like it was a 3-inch window, and there was like a metal mesh that was put over.
Yeah, but they had that little thing where like either inmates or whatever getting out of jail would come over to this building behind where our unit was.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like you would have people walking, and that's the reason they have that grate, because every time you would know, if you're laying there reading your book in your solitary confinement, as soon as you hear screaming and banging, everybody checks their windows, because they know there has to be a female out there. Because the young kids upstairs that just full of testosterone just went absolutely nuts when there was girls outside. But I think for that reason, that's the reason they had the grates on the windows, stuff like that. But the first time I seen my family, and like the only way you could see your family was if you were blessed enough to talk to them on the phone, give them the location, and have them find that graveyard next to the jail, walk through the graveyard, and like that's the only way you see them. So the first time I see my family was through that window, just waving.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They were in the graveyard, which was split by a parking lot and a big brick wall. You know what I mean? So it's a distance plus that grate on the window. Like, you really can't see anything. Like, they took videos and pictures, and I seen them, and I'm like, I'm just amazed that they even see me, because I couldn't even really see me. If I didn't know where my window was, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have seen me.
Right.
But that was the first time that, like, I was actually able to see my family in between that 2 years and 2 days, because we were denied video visits, in-person visits, and everything, because we wouldn't take the vaccine. And then, other than that, no haircuts. What would we go, 18 months, something like that?
I know it was 16 for me, because it took me a year and a half to get to trial. So my first haircut was...
yeah, because yours was like, they let you do it because of your trial, right?
Yeah, so I was, it was spring of 2022. Yeah, so I went 16 months without a haircut, and I was arrested in January 15th. Okay. So I was like, it was about 16 months for me.
Yeah, and like that, you know what I mean? We all went so long, and other than the people with shorter hair that was able to use, because the only thing we had to use was...
chemical burns.
The chemical burns.
Nair.
It's like Nair. Yeah, exactly. And like you would see all the time, people, like our guys in the unit, faces, like their faces all like blistered and stuff from using the stuff to stay clean shaved. You know what I mean? Because some people, they can't do it. They'd rather do that, which I did a couple times just to keep my beard like kind of lined up, like up on my cheeks and then on my neck, which luckily we had each other to help us out with that and keep it lined as straight as possible and get it off as quick as possible without burning and stuff. But some people weren't that fortunate, and they kept having to do it. You know what I mean? Kept having to put it on their head or their face or wherever they, you know what I mean, their neck.
Was that or use nail clippers?
Oh my God, dude! And I know I'm on this interview, but I'm not gonna lie, I did it too. I had to, man, because like people know, men know, if you could grow a beard and a mustache, dude, when you start eating your mustache when you're trying to enjoy a meal, or like just constantly pushing it with your fingers, like trying to push it out and stuff like that, like that is so annoying.
I got mustache in my peat loaf.
Exactly. It was just, you know what I mean? It was just one of it's sad. Honestly, it's sad that like you have to come to a point where it's like, okay, I have the opportunity, which was a rare opportunity as well, was to cut your nails. You know what I mean? But this is like almost the only opportunity I have to get this hair from like off of my lip and away from my mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And somebody else did it first. I'm not going to say who did it, but they're the ones that gave me the idea, and they actually helped me out. Which shout out to you, bro. You know who you are. But other than just the fact of knowing and like how disgusting it was a relief. You know what I mean? Because this was in between being able to get a haircut. So like our beards were down to our chest, our hair's down to our shoulders. You know what I mean? So it's like any type of relief of something was good.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? With the no outside recreation, no religious services, all of that. Like we were just deprived of everything. Everything. Just like normal stuff, you know?
Well, I believe at one point they tried to shake us down and steal our evidence, and they took your discovery at one point, did they not?
Yeah, they took it twice. Yep.
Yeah.
They took my discovery twice. First time, which was crazy. The first time they brought it to me, they bring it to you with a laptop and your stuff, and they're supposed to open it in front of you. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they come in and scrolling it on this cart, and this girl had it already loaded on an open laptop. Like, it was opened in the laptop and had my picture with the bat in the window and stuff. Like, just on the laptop, scrolling through. I mean, we ended up, like, kind of sharing and helping each other with evidence and stuff, but still, at this point, like, you know what I mean? They're not supposed to do that. She walks in like that, blah, blah, blah. That happened. I get my stuff. I'm like, and then I'm going through it. I went through that evidence probably in less than a day. Like that, I'm saying that's how much evidence I was given.
Right.
Like, for a whole 3 hours maybe, something like that, I got not even 20 minutes worth of evidence, which was insane to me. And then the further we get into it, I'll stay upset. I had that, and they're like, "Oh, you only get you get the laptop and you sign it. You tell them, or they tell you only get the laptop for 2 weeks, and then you have to give it back and then request it again because there's a whole line or whatever.
Right.
And you have to request it again just to like look at your evidence again. But when they come back for it, they said, we're coming for your laptop and your evidence. I said, no, the evidence stays with me, and you take the laptop back. That's the agreement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's not how it works. You don't take my evidence from me. I get my evidence and I keep it. I keep my evidence. You take your property, and then I request your property back so I can view my evidence again.
Yeah.
But they were doing all that. And I denied it. I said, no, I'm not giving you my evidence. Like, it's bullshit. So then Franklin comes in, and he's actually the one that comes in, and then I'm telling him the same thing. I said, you're not taking my evidence. You take your laptop, but I keep my evidence. But come to find out, I mean, none of them knew how legal stuff worked, which is crazy. If you work there, you should know, especially if you're handling people's evidence. But we found out they handled that wrong too. And he's like, all right, and he shuts the door. He locks me in my cell, and he comes back with ERT, Emergency Response Team.
Yeah.
These fucking goons that walk in. They got their masks on. They're covering their faces. They got like gloves and, you know what I mean, vests and stuff on. They're coming in, big pepper spray, whatever. They got to use zip ties. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, you think something's going down, and he opens the thing. He's like, you're going to give me the evidence. I said, no. You know what I mean? You're not scaring me with fucking bunch of dudes all masked up. Like, if you're going to do it, do it. Yeah. But luckily all he did was, he's like, all right, turn around, put your hands behind your back. I turned around, put my hands behind my back. And he was about to handcuff me to the railing, put me over to the railing, and he's like, where's your discovery at? And I told him where it was. I'm like, you know what, you're going to do all this, you know what I mean? You're going to have to take it. So, and then they ended up getting my discovery, took me out of the cuffs, they left, and I was telling my first lawyer, back to that again, shitty lawyer. I was telling my first lawyer it was taken, I don't know where it went, I don't know when I'm getting it back, I need it back, blah, blah, blah. Nothing ever happened. And then months go by, and then I'm pretty sure it's when I got my new lawyer, he was able to get it for me again, which now it was weird. It was like, it was sent different. Like, they had a different, it's almost like they copied it, because the first time was on discs, and then the second time they had it on a flash drive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, they were definitely copying our evidence and keeping it for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I'm almost guaranteed that we had grievances put in together about that, because people were getting different people's evidence and stuff like that. And that was a crazy thing too, was once we started working together, if you were in my discovery or vice versa, we wouldn't have the same evidence. You would either have the video with me in it, or I would have the video with you in it, and neither of us would have the same one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I remember that.
But then the second time was when we was in the barbershop, once we finally got the barbershop and stuff. And we was in the barbershop, and the lady that took care of like the laptops and stuff like that, and we're coming back for them, come down to the barbershop and was talking to us and never said a word to me. She was talking to us about like this and that, talking to certain people about like laptops and stuff. Didn't say a word to me. After the fact, I figured out, I mean, they were pretty much down there to make sure I was down there so they could do whatever they did, which I have that somewhere. I have the video of it, the aftermath. But I get back and people from C2B said they just went through your cell. They raided your cell. I'm like, what? So I ran back to my cell. My fucking shit's all ripped apart. You know what I mean? And what I noticed was because I had a manila envelope full of like all my paperwork, my legal paperwork and all of my stuff. And that's where my discovery was. That was poured out. Everything was all over the place. The evidence was poured out all over the place. And my discovery was gone. Again, for the second time.
Wait a second. This might have been, so I wasn't 100% positive. This might have been, so that the lady who handled the discovery, she was the one with the gigantic ass, the black lady. And she actually, I think this might have been the same day she tried to take my evidence. And this was when, after Nichols and them got Mellis to confess to causing all the bullshit in the jail with that recording.
Yeah.
Mellis,
It was the same time when, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Mellis went and snitched to the jail. So he tried to get the, anybody who might have had copies of that shit, basically had them raided and taken. I refused, and they never came back.
That was the same time that, which was crazy. And I think I put that in the video that I have, because I borrowed somebody's laptop and their flash drive to make the video, obviously, because they took my shit. But I made the video of the aftermath so I could show to my attorney, and of my cell. But I did mention that because that was the same time, because they actually gave Ryan Nichols the opportunity, because they came and he was there, and they said they were there to take his discovery, but he said that he told them to turn on their camera and give him the opportunity to say what he had to say, which they did. And they gave him the opportunity to say what he had to say about it, and then they took it, and then he got a hold of his legal team, and he had it back in like a day or two, I believe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They tried to do it with me, and I said no. And she said that she would come back with ERT, and then I'm like, all right.
They always threatened ERT.
Yeah, and so I'm like, all right, you go get them. And then I jumped on the phone and I called my lawyer up, and I'm like, yo, did you you know what it was? They specifically said that my lawyer wanted the evidence back. They told me that my lawyer was, they needed to give it back to my lawyer because my lawyer was requesting it. So I called them up, and they're like, no, that's not real. That's not a thing at all. They were just trying to get me to, I don't know.
Exactly. They were just lying. They would always lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of like actually knowing their job, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Knowing their job and doing it right.
And that
would just make shit up and try and threaten you or lie about something.
And that was right after Mellis left us. He went and he snitched, and then he came back all nervous and guilty looking. He's like, so did anything happen while I was gone? It's like, yeah, motherfucker, we got fucking raided, you cocksucker.
Wow.
That's crazy, because like we all had to sign, I mean, obviously, your evidence is supposed to be protected because it's your case or whatever. But I mean, I remember going to, because you didn't have court back then, you had Zoom meetings. So they would take you to they take you to a room. You go to court over Zoom because of the COVID bullshit. And so, it was Corporal Hayes Corporal Hayes had escorted me to this place or whatever, and I could hear him outside of this room. He was talking to the other guards, like a bunch of females. He was trying to impress them by saying, he's reading my paperwork, and they're calling me a white supremacist. He's like, this guy's a white supremacist.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm like, motherfucker, how am I, like, are you kidding me? What else are you doing? You going through my evidence? Well, maybe. I was like, they didn't care.
Oh, you know they were for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and we found that out. I mean, not even just my case, but we found that out from people getting their stuff, and it's already, loaded on the computer, or getting their stuff and it has different stuff that it didn't have on it before. So that's how we figured out that they were copying and saving.
They were making Xerox copies of all of McKellop's stuff. Like Jeff was having people. They were going through his stuff, and his kids were getting phone calls from strangers. Like they took his family's personal information and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were doing all kinds of less than savory stuff. Let's say with our personal information, the mail. They were obviously looking through our mail and stuff because it was always late.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yep. And opened.
Yeah. But even on the way out, I was like, they're allowed to look for contraband when it comes in, but they're really not supposed to go through all of our stuff on the way out.
Right.
But didn't stop them.
I mean, but with the evidence stuff too, it's like you're not supposed to touch that. That's supposed to go from lawyer to your hands to the inmate's hands.
Right.
Not your hands so you can look through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're pre-trial.
That's what I never got that, man. It was just, and like you were saying, we're pre-trial, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Innocent until proven guilty, and then what do they call? What do we call that? With the evidence, how it didn't go from lawyer to us. Like they had it, they were going through it. Chain of evidence.
Chain of custody.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like. And that's what we're all getting into with the cases, with the lawsuits and stuff. And that's why some of the stuff I don't really want to go into that just in case,
Sure.
Kind of save that for them.
Yeah.
But eventually, I definitely hope to expose all of that because that's what I told my lawyer too. I said I have as much paperwork as I was able to get out, and because every time they would raid our cells and stuff, they would take our grievances. So I told her, because the main thing that they're worried about is, did you use the grievance process? And yes, we exhausted it, but somebody even said that the grievance process was broken.
Right. And
I gave them the examples to where we were putting in grievances, like we were already at a step 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
And all the way up. And they would cross out the step 3 and turn it into a step 1.
Right.
Or
there was
whoever you were writing a grievance about, like a guard or whatever, they would return it themselves.
Right. Opened and read.
Open, exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I was telling them. I'm like, that's the crazy thing, and that's really what I want to get out there is that, like, because I still have to find out. Do you remember who admitted to us that the grievance process was broken?
I think it was actually he was like a chief of the marshals. Like the marshal, like one of the heads of the marshals came in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like he had glasses. Yeah, he came in. He actually was able to get me some copies of grievances I filed, like not the originals but copies, because the jail wouldn't give them to me. And yeah, They took the fourth step away. It was a 4-step thing, and they just wouldn't give us the 4th form. Like they just
that was the all the way up, and they didn't want it to go there.
Yeah, they didn't want it getting to the deputy wardens and stuff.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, like I don't know if you have any of yours stored away, but it was like there were so many grievances filed by everyone that if you put them together, it's like it's impossible to overlook. Like that.
Right. And that's what I brought up to them too. I told them that as many as I could, like, because there was people in there that they would have paperwork, like they would write it down.
Yeah.
And they would write down the date, the time, what it was about, what step they had, and when they had to put in the next one, this and that. But they would come in and they would steal everything. So I told them, I told my girl over the phone the date, the time, what the situation was, and all that. So I should have a couple of them put away. Plus, I think I have a few personal from my property. But I told them the same thing. I'm like, you guys have to somehow. I know it's not class action, but you guys have to conversate, because a lot of us, even though it happened to me, there's eyewitnesses, or it happened to multiple other people.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Just like when I got onto the fact of when they were lying to us about video visits. I said they even went as far as bringing the little stands or whatever that the pads go on, that the tablets go on the wall. They installed them things saying that we were getting tablets that had video visits. Then we get the tablets, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was me and Billy that walked up to the warden and said, "Hey, like, what's going on?" Because even the GTL people, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's on there, ready to go. It's up to the facility." And we went on there, couldn't find it, and me and him walked up to the warden and was like, "What's going on? You guys said we were getting video visits." And she said, "Oh, well, we don't have enough people to watch and make sure you guys ain't showing your junk."
What?
You know what I mean?
And that's also why I do these interviews, is because we're all, even if it's all anecdotal, let's say, it's still evidence. Anecdotal evidence is still evidence, and it's testimony. We're all primary sources that we can all use each other. You know.
Exactly. And that's what we gotta fight it together.
Well, in terms of fighting, you did end up taking a plea deal, and obviously you went to prison. So, if you could, you went into a little bit about what the reasoning was in terms of in terms of taking a plea deal and just getting the hell out of there, because you basically were deprived of every right that the Constitution provides you as a citizen. You pretty much were denied. Obviously, you wanted to get back to your family, and it weighed on you. You could not see them. From I guess I'd like you to get into a little bit about the sentencing. What was it like dealing with the courts? Your prosecutors, your judges, were they extremely harsh? Were they fair? Were they ridiculous? Obviously, they fought to keep you they fought to keep you in pretrial detention, take away your chance at bail, and keep you in solitary. So I'm sure they weren't the biggest fans of you. But how did they treat you? And then what was your path to prison like?
Well, there's a few things I could say about that, especially what we were talking about before, how we weren't going to court, we were going through Zoom meetings and stuff, and then my switching lawyers and stuff. I went through four different prosecutors, which was crazy to me. So I went through three guys and a lady prosecutor, which the first two were like the first I think year or two, and then the last one was my prosecutor, and then something happened before my sentencing. He wasn't able to be there, and that's where the lady came in. But I mean, just the same as everything, it was more of like, oh, I'm just doing my job type thing, like just really trying to get a conviction, I mean, I was looking at 292 to 365 months going to trial, and that's with the terrorism enhancement. And I was head on. I was doing that for the first, I would say, 2 years. You know what I mean? And that's what we all were planning on doing too.
Yeah.
And I go back to having a shitty lawyer at first, because he was trying to get me to take my first offer was 10 to 12 years. And he was just really just trying to get me to take a plea. And I was like explaining to him, like, this is not a normal situation. You know what I mean? And he always tried to make it smaller than what it was. And actually, the one time I told him straight up, I said, what? I said, all the years you've been doing this, I don't care how big your cases were, none of your cases had any defendant that Vladimir Putin called a political prisoner.
I remember that.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, but it was just shitty all the way through. I mean, my first court hearing, he called me an idiot. Like, in the hearing, I'm like, all right, this dude's a fucking idiot, you know? And then I'm telling him all this stuff. Like, the one time I blew up on him because I'm like, I ain't seen my family in 18, 19 months. Like, and you haven't did shit. You know what I mean? I'm asking you to try and get them into your office or try and get us a meeting, something. Like, I have not seen my family. You know what I mean? He just would not do anything. I'm trying to put in motions for stuff, try and get a hold of the jail, get shit situated there. Nothing. You know? So, and then God bless you guys. You guys came up with the Patriot Freedom Project, and that was floating around and stuff. And I'm like, at the time, I wasn't thinking. I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm still dealing with this shitty lawyer, and I don't know how to go about it. And then that comes up, and then I was lucky enough for you to put me on the phone with your aunt, and we had a nice long conversation. I don't want to say long because they only gave us 15 minutes, but you know what I mean? Kind of explained my situation and kind of introduced ourselves over the phone, and she kind of explained to me what was going on and what the organization was about. And I loved it. You know what I mean? I love the idea and just able to have something for help, you know what I mean? Because we were stranded, honestly. Stranded. Even most people had public defenders from D.C., if not public defenders, paid lawyers that they wasted money on. Because, I mean, we wasted, she had life savings, Lexi did, and she spent it all on this first lawyer that we had.
Yeah.
And it makes me sick to my stomach because he did nothing. You know what I mean? But luckily, we were able to, your aunt was able to find my second lawyer, my final lawyer, Comron McNoon, one of the best lawyers in Pittsburgh, I would say. And in between that, since we're on the subject, in between that, it goes back to when we were doing the Zoom court dates. In between that, the two lawyers, my judge actually asked me, he's like, well, since you're in between lawyers, I would have to ask you if you would want to waive your right to speedy trial another 30 days until you get situated with the new lawyer. And on record, I said, no, I would actually like to invoke my right to speedy trial. And then he went on to start explaining it. He's like, Mr. Mink, you do know that means that we would have a trial in 70 days, no matter what, here in D.C. And I said, yes, that's what I want to do. And he kind of seemed surprised, and he said, well, in the interest of justice, I'm going to waive your right to speedy trial in 30 days.
Yep.
And I said, you just asked me if I wanted to push my right, like waive my rights for 30 days, and I told you no, I want to invoke my rights, and you're going to waive them anyways? And ultimately he said, yeah, and that's what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I get, I am in between lawyers, and even me and my second lawyer, we talked about it after that. He's like, well, I wouldn't have been ready. And I said, that's not the point. The point is my rights, and my rights were violated. I was asked to exercise my rights. I exercised my rights, and then they were violated in the interest of justice. Yeah, what the fuck does that mean?
It means they assumed you would just go along with waiving it because they thought you knew you were in a vulnerable position. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It caught him off guard because he figured, I'll waive for the next guy. No, I want to invoke. You know what I mean? Whether we want to do that when I get my new lawyer, you know what I mean? We could have figured something out that way. But no, as of right now, I don't know what's going on. I want my trial in 70 days. Because the first 2 years, I was set on trial. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the more and more that people were going and just getting annihilated, you know what I mean? It wasn't mainly that, but it was like, once I got my second lawyer and I explained to him how our mindset worked, you know what I mean? We were all talking. We're like, listen, we are going to lose the trials. There's no doubt about it. You're going to go in there, lose the trial, and we're going to pray on appeals. And I explained them that. I said, I know I'm losing trial, but I want to go to trial. I'm going to lose, and then we focus on appeals. And he said, yeah, it sounds great, but this is DC. And we actually had a long, deep conversation about it. And he explained to me exactly the situation, that the same place, DC, with the trials and the jury from DC are going to be the same place that your appeals are going through. So it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're legit gambling with your life. And my main thing is, I was alone. I'm on my own indictment. I don't have, you know what I mean?
Right.
Unlike some people that we won't mention. But me taking a plea deal affected nobody. You know what I mean? Yeah. Only myself. And which I knew and believed in my heart that we were going to be all right. I didn't put all my chips into waiting. Or you know what I mean? Running to trial, losing, and getting all that time, and putting all my chips or eggs in one basket, however you say it, on the election.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I had to make my own decision. All that we've been through, yeah, it had a lot to do with it. But the main thing was my son, my family. I legit broke down on the phone the one day to I believe it was my mother, but I broke down, bawling my eyes out, because it was my final decision. I'm going to trial. You know what I mean? I said, I believe wholeheartedly my mother raised me by herself, and I grew up just fine. You know what I mean? And my fiance at the time, she's my wife now, Lexi, took such good care of me throughout our whole relationship. She even helped me come to sobriety and help me through sobriety. You know what I mean? I'm almost 5.5 years sober now. But I'm my whole point was my son will be fine with both of them raising him. I actually came to that point because I believed in my heart that I was doing the right thing, and that I was just going to, you know what I mean? I'm fighting the government. I'm going to go in there, head held high, and get the fucker chopped off. You know what I mean? With pride. But the more I thought about it, and then I was explaining the legal situation and stuff, I'm it's not about pride. It's about what's right and what's wrong, and how do you want to go about it? You know what I mean? Do you want to give them the satisfaction of that? You know, because they don't care. It's just
you're a number.
It's just another. Yeah, you're just a number, and that's another conviction. I mean, look what they did. They were giving out, you know what I mean, over 20 years to people that had no violence. You know what I mean? So it's don't be surprised when they do give you the time. And then now your only hope is either appeals, which is in D.C., or the election, which, thank God Almighty, the election went through, and Trump stands on everything he says. You know what I mean? For 3 years, he said we were all good partners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I had a long time to think about it, and just all type of stuff piled up. You know what I mean? Emotionally, physically, everything. And that's just, and luckily because they were telling my first lawyer that they weren't budging anymore. But that was obviously a little early on. And then as time went, which I'm lucky for that too, as time went on, And then I got my second lawyer, which actually did his job and worked and fought for me, got me down to the 51 is 51. I can't remember the other number. It was like 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? Coming from the 292 to 365 months for trial for terrorism enhancement. First offer 10 to 12, and then that other offer was that. So I'm like, and I was already, halfway through. Which at this time I didn't know that everywhere else was gonna, not everywhere, because I'm hearing some people had better opportunities where they ended up, which I'm grateful for that, you know what I mean? But not everybody had that, because where I ended up, I wasn't able to do any of the stuff that I was told I could do to help get more time off, everything. Yep. I ended up at a place that was pretty much the same thing, locked down constantly, all segregated, not racially. I mean, they were, obviously, they got cars and stuff, but segregated buildings. We had 3 buildings, 4 units each, you know what I mean? And we had to go 1 unit at a time everywhere.
Were there any J6ers with you in prison?
Well, I was there for a little bit. I was there for 7 months, and a few months in, I got word, because I got a job in the kitchen, because that was the only way you could keep moving, you know what I mean, get out and about. But
yeah,
Neely ended up showing up, and he was in a different building, so it was really hard for me to find him. And I even sent a few kites to his building, and people in his building, trying to get a hold of, letting them know. I don't think they ever reached him. But eventually, the one day I was down in the kitchen, I was down in the cafeteria in the kitchen where I was working the one morning, and I was able to see him come through the line to get food. And you're not really supposed to, but I went out and I stood by his table and talked to him a little bit, you know what I mean? And he was pretty high spirits and stuff, other than the fact that his contacts were shut off. They weren't letting him talk to the people he was talking to, I guess. You know what I mean? Because they do extra recording and monitoring of phone calls. So I guess the people he was talking to and stuff he was talking about, you know what I mean, their lockdowns and how they treated people, how they were. That's what I imagine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then a few months later, I was released. I didn't really see him too much after that. But then I was released. But that place was a hellhole. You know what I mean? It was the warden, the assistant warden, the captain. They should all be ashamed of themselves. Even a lot of them guards, and just disgusting people. And that was FCI McDowell in Welch, West Virginia. You know, and I have names and situations and stuff like that. Even my cellie, he had a great idea to jot down times and dates and stuff on a piece of paper, and throughout the whole time there, it shows, it's like a chart, and it shows and you scratch out, make a bar of when you were locked down. Pretty much all these pages are black. Let's just say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's all types of situations and stuff like that. And even the warden himself the one time, because we weren't open at all. It was one building at one time, barely ever got the yard. If we got the yard, it was a big yard. One side was soccer field and a track. Middle was a bunch of basketball hoops, or basketball courts and basketball hoops, and then the other side was 2 softball fields. But if we went out there, we were only out there for about an hour or 2, and we only got a quarter. So it was either walk around and mess around on the softball fields, or one day it was mainly the softball fields and the basketball courts, because we only got the soccer field and the track 2 times, and we barely ever went out there. But it was horrible over there. They didn't know how to run it. They walked through like they were the shit. It was almost like DC. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I went up to the warden myself personally the one day, because we heard a rumor that they were going to open the yard back up. Not the actual yard, but like the whole prison, like where people can move freely, go to programs, you know what I mean? Go outside, do whatever, how prison should be. The yard's open all day, programs are open all day, you know what I mean? Exercising, whatever. But I walked up and said that, and he told me to my face, 1,500 idiots. Why would I want them all together?
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Besides being a douchebag, what was the reasoning? Like, was it a dangerous yard? You were in a medium, correct?
Yeah, I was in a medium security. But, yeah, I mean, no. I mean, it's just, even a dangerous one. I mean, a maximum security has recreation. They can move around. And then if something serious happens, okay, now you lock down. You know what I mean? They might be locked down for weeks or even months at a time, but it opens back up. Like they just ran it horrible. You know what I mean? They didn't know how to run a prison is what I kind of took from it. Let me see if I can find this book, because I'll say the names. I got this little, I can't remember I'll get the name of the warden. The assistant warden is Lefevre, and then the captain was Perez, and that's FCI McDowell, Welch, West Virginia. The warden, Rokowski, I think his name was, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check that and get back to you about that. But it's just they ran that place. I don't even know how to explain it.
So they just kept you locked down. It was punitively. I mean, basically, they kept you locked down just because they didn't want to have to be bothered. Basically,
absolutely. Like it's almost like how we explained in DC, like how we kind of figured out like COVID screwed everything up, made these people not want to work, made it so easy to just lock you in, and they don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they would never know. Like, you would ask, like, what's the situation? Oh, we don't know. When are we getting out? Oh, we don't know. You know what I mean? And then prison is different. You know how they got the keys. They jingle the keys, and it's like, it's traumatic, dude. Like, you hear keys and doors opening up. You run to the door. You're like, we getting out? And then they just walk by doing their count. You know what I mean? It's like, but they'll like jingle their keys. Or like they'll slam doors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was. I mean, we do have the time, but it's like I said before multiple times. I'm waiting until we get through these lawsuits, because there's just so much I want to expose, so many people I want to expose. I mean, so much truth needs brought to the light. It's insane, because I mean, it's been a year. I got out March 5th of last year. It's been a year, and like, throughout our whole situation too, but also experiencing it, and like all the locations, like these people constantly go through this. We were lucky to get 3 to 4 years of this stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though it was horrible, you know what I mean? But there's some people that are never getting out, and it's only getting worse unless something happens. You know what I mean? Unless there's a serious reform. And that's what I told my lawyer, my civil lawyer. I said, like, I'm not in this for the money, dude. Like, yeah, money would be great, but if you're just in it for the money, you're saying screw everybody else that's dealing with the same thing that we're protesting against. You know what I mean? We want reform. We want a change, because there's people in there, they ain't coming out. But that doesn't, it don't matter what they did. They don't, their rights don't need to be violated like that.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that we had to go through it. You know what I mean? People have to go through crazy shit just to get reform. But we're also blessed and have the opportunity to have platforms and big name people that have our back. You know what I mean? So we can get this stuff done.
Well, I'm hoping now that people are pretending like they care about us, hopefully they'll listen to our experiences and they'll start to pretend to care about actual prison reform for everyone.
Absolutely.
You know, on the subject of, you know, getting the truth out, you know, we've pretty much gone through, from start to finish your journey here. So now I want to give you the opportunity, Jorden, to talk about pretty much anything else. I'll give you the floor. If there's anything else you think we didn't cover, that you think the country should know or you want listeners to hear, go for it.
Pretty much what we covered. There's, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that we can't cover for legal reasons and stuff like that. And also waiting to figure out what we can release and what we can't, because, thanks to Elon for buying Twitter and making it free speech, well, mostly free speech. But there's a lot of stuff being released, but it's still just a trickle. You know what I mean? It's not what we have seen for all them years. And what we've seen for all them years is still not all of it. You know what I mean? 44,000 hours, if not more, of footage that we've only seen a few hours worth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's really what I'm hoping and praying for, is that somehow we get the evidence that we need. We need to call on Congress again. You know what I mean? I don't care what you think about this or that. Like, this evidence needs released. The committee needs made. We need investigations into what happened and why it happened and who were the bad actors and all that. We need it all released, and especially for the American people to actually see the truth. Because there are a few people on X that are releasing some footage, and I'm like skeptical on like sharing a lot of it. I think I shared a few maybe, but certain people are sharing it, and I'm not sharing their content because it's not their content. And I feel I have a hard feeling about that. It's like other people that really aren't on our side or were involved, just trying to really get clicks. You know what I mean? They're just putting out clickbait, So I'm not going to share certain stuff, especially waiting for certain people to put out their evidence, because it could be somebody else's evidence that they're waiting to release. So I don't want to kind of step on toes, and I want us all to work together and it be like this fucking mega drop. You know what I mean? That we were all waiting for inside. We're waiting for the drop. You know what I mean? We want it all, and we never got it.
It's happening.
It's happening. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. You know what I'm saying? But that's really the only thing. Other than just keep fighting, man. Whether you like what happened on January 6th or not. Whether you were there or not. Especially if you weren't there. My main thing, I love and hate to say it, but if you didn't vote, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear anything. You know what I mean? If you don't have the balls to register and vote, then you have no say-so in anything going on politically, nothing. You just keep going to work or staying in the basement. I don't know what's going on in your life, but you know what I mean? Stay out of politics. You can't come out and talk shit on Trump. You can't even talk shit on Biden. I don't care who you don't like or who you like. You don't know nothing about them. You didn't care enough to vote. Just keep your mouth shut. You know what I mean? Let us handle this. Us American people, that's Democrats and Republicans. I don't really care about either side. I'm just American first. Let's just keep doing what we're doing, finding out where all this money's going, bring everything back to this country, start building this country back up. You know what I mean? Because in my beliefs, we're still in distress. We still have how many millions and millions of illegal immigrants, which we don't know who's who, what's what, where they're at. You know what I mean? We still have crazy prices and just all types of crisis, honestly. We're in good hands now. You know what I mean? The country's coming back to God. The country has spoken about who they want to help us go this direction and heal. But we need to make sure we don't get complacent like we did before. Like I fully understand that we became complacent for so long. We're like, oh yeah, elections are always stolen. Oh, this, that, you know what I mean? Oh, they've been doing it. We trusted the government too much. We started sitting back like, oh, they'll take care of it. Oh, we'll be all right. Or like if something got bad, oh, it's only 4 years. It'll flip back over. Like it's a table toss thing, you know? But this is where it changed. It changed when somebody that's in it for the better of this country, because, I mean, their family has to live here too, and they have a legacy and business and stuff to keep going. And if we fall, everything else falls. Like everybody's like, oh, he's so selfish. He ain't selfish. He's a smart man. You know what I mean? If you were in the same boat, you would do the same thing. You got to get to the top to take care of stuff. You got to get into the position that you can take care of stuff. Like we're a business, and we should be ran like one. Like, and they're just running it like they own the business. They're giving out free beers, not even to us. You know what I mean? They're walking down the street. Hey, you want a beer? Yeah, here you go. Here's a case. Here's a few cases. You want to take all our inventory? You know, forget all that, man. We just got to keep paying attention. And I believe also taking shots at the education system. Need to start teaching the truth. We start teaching these kids life skills. You know what I mean? Everything. Taxes, checkbooks, and like, you know what I mean? Mortgages, loans, all that. Everything that you're going to have to deal with, you should be able to learn. Not just, hey, can you put a couple of these letters and numbers together? Oh, good job, A+. Where are you going to take that? And then take all these, in the colleges, take all this bullshit out of the college. You know what I mean? If it's not going to have a job or not going to help you or this country succeed, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? It's like I'll shout out Charlie Kirk and his book, The College Scam. It's one of the first books I read when I got out, man, because I couldn't get it inside because we couldn't get hardcover. But I mean, it explains it all in there. You buy one and read it yourself. And speaking of books, any J6ers, they got books out there. Please go buy one or two, and give them to friends and family. You know what I mean? Support the cause and learn the truth. That's the only way you're going to learn. You're going to follow us on X, follow what we're talking about and who we're talking about, and keep an open mind. And don't just go on here thinking everybody that's January 6th is a fucking patriot, because that's not the truth. You know what I mean? And that's going to be exposed soon, which I can't wait for that. But we got other things to worry about and prioritize right now to get out of the way. But it will be coming soon. So, but we just got to keep the faith in God and in country. And even though we got a lot of bozos out there, I mean, we got to stay sharp and solid and keep telling the truth and just keep exposing the fraud and the lies, you know?
Very much. My takeaway from that is that we still have a country to save. And, absolutely. And Jorden wants to join my militia. No, just kidding. Disavow.
It's a drinking fraternity. Well,
Jorden, I thank you for coming on here and taking the time out of your day to tell your story and help get the truth out and help, one bit at a time, challenge the false narratives about us. I especially want people to hear you talk because, I think that the more authentic people that are heard, the more the average person will realize that we're no different than they are.
Right.
You especially, having been with you in there for so long, it's important for people not just to hear sympathetic voices, but to also hear authentic ones. And you are one of the most,
for sure.
You're one of the realest people in there. Crying brawler. You're one of the most.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Oh, shit.
Authentic.
Crying brawler. I'm still crying. Shit.
Pittsburgh Patriots, cool, but I mean, clearly the Sedition Hunters did a better job with the naming. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an AKA, man. You know what I mean? I don't know which one I want to take. You know,
long list of aliases. Fuck, Jorden, thank you so much, man. And I'm glad you're out, and I'm glad you're back with your family. I've met them. You have a great family, and I look forward to changing the world with you in the future, man. God bless you.
Absolutely, man. I thank you so much, Tim. I love you, man. I miss you. Hope to see you now that we're a little free. You know what I mean? A little bit more free.
And we don't have to hide for probation when we meet.
That's right. Amen, dude. Well, I'm home on spring break right now from school. I'm over at Western Welding Academy in Wyoming, and I'll be done in like 3-4 months, and we'll have to plan some get together or something.
Oh yeah.
Because I missed out on getting kicked out of CPAC, I guess. You know?
Yeah, quote unquote. Fucking
yeah.
And on that note, I want to end with this. I know that I've talked to them both. Pete and Kenny are very proud of you for going into welding. So good job.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Proud of you. Pee pee poo poo.
Thank you. All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you so much.